this person might be. In 1983, at the Columbian Exposition in Chicago, they did the first public lighting. Lights all across the exposition there. Think of the World's Fair. Think of you didn't have lights in your house. Everybody was using kerosene lanterns.
What year?
1893. Columbian Exposition. This is where most people learned about this man, partnered with George Westinghouse. But if we go back and you think about all the things that you see here, the air conditioners, the freezers, the lights, how did we get this electricity from somewhere else into this building? This is the man who invented AC, or alternating current. He invented the step-up transformer in 1891. He was actually doing wireless lighting in 1890. He used to have a loop around the top of his studio or his experimentation place. He would hold something called a phosphor lamp in his hand, maybe a wand in the other hand, and then this would start to glow and illuminate. No wires. Turn of the last century. He invented the wireless remote control, which they had to reference people from the 80s that started doing remote control with computers, late 70s, early 80s, and they said you need to go back to his patents in 1898, look at those again, because that's where remote control was established. He established global radio, first time that somebody had an antenna, could send a frequency, have two boxes on either side, and actually tune that frequency and have a piece of information go back and forth. In fact, that was one of his great things, is he had a vision. And early on he had a vision of two things. One, he could see that the whole globe somehow radiated. And the other one was that he had a vision when he was a young man of a great waterfall turning a wheel. And he told his father that at some point in time I'm going to go and work and create that type of thing, this electricity thing that they were working on. Later on that became Niagara Falls and the power generation plant. Without this man that would not have happened. But he saw those things. So that was one of his keys to being an entrepreneur, was he had vision. In fact, he even saw blinking lights, to the fact that some people wonder if he was, at that time, maybe possessed. But he certainly had this vision and things that would come to him that weren't really him just dreaming about things. He also came up with the bladeless turbine in 1906 that you could either run things through like water or go the opposite way and pull electricity back out of them. Because of that, all of the things that we use today that you have in your house, refrigerators, motors, electric starters on your car, a lot of these things are because of this man. He felt that you had to be well trained. He went to polytechnic schools in Austria. He was actually Serbian. Moved to the United States when he was in his late 20s. Lived in New York. Was always a New Yorker. Always lived in the United States. Knew many people. So one of his other philosophies was know the people that are around you, people that can invest in you. Those were his source of income. George Westinghouse, J.P. Morgan. He later met Mark Twain. In fact, credited Mark Twain with helping him out of an illness. Perseverance were, of course, one of his main things. But technical skills were the biggest one. Math, physics, also the ability to document things. He, in fact, had met Edison, worked for Edison. Edison needed a helper. Put him on the job the day he met him. He worked for him for several months. The only thing that he said about Edison is it was a shame the man didn't have more mathematics and physics, because what he was doing with brute, sheer experimentation of saying, I'm going to experiment 500 times to find out which one doesn't fail. He said he could have cut that list in half if he would have had the math or the physics back of it. So be around people with capital and have talented assistants surrounding you. The one thing that makes him, and kind of makes me think that he wasn't a good entrepreneur in a way, is he considered products to be kind of vulgar. He was a man that thought that he would be famous in perpetuity. He was an inventor, but he stayed in the realm of ideas. And so he would do little machines, or he'd have people build machines to show people what he was thinking about, but he wasn't about the machines. So he was never about a product. And that come to his demise at the end. Like many geniuses, he died virtually a pauper, lived in hotel rooms, and in the end, by the grace of the people that knew him, kind of picked up the tab for him and just never kicked him out, because they knew he was famous, they knew what he had done. But he made some very bad business mistakes. He was with George Westinghouse early when they were developing Niagara Falls, had the sum of $2.50 per horsepower that they would generate from a motor. This is in the turn of the century, last century. $2.50. A similar thing was going on with the stock market there, where J.P. Morgan was going in and playing with the stock market, trying to make his values rise for several things, and the market was collapsing. And Westinghouse came to him and said, I can't pay that much. I have this whole plant that they were working on. I needed to renegotiate it. And the man named NICOLA Tesla turned around, went to a meeting with him, took the contract and tore it up. So had he renegotiated that even to 10 or 25 cents a horsepower, he would have at least not died a pauper. Very well known in his circles. But he is actually the creator of radio, what he called in the lumini vociferous ether. He understood that when they started working, and he started working with these waves and frequencies, that the higher the frequency, that you would get these frequencies to basically become harmonic. And what he realized was that the Earth was a harmonic instrument, and that the stratosphere, or the ether as they call it, which we still call ethernets, the air that moves outside the planet, you could actually run high frequencies through it. We now know that most popularly as radio. There are several things that he was experimenting and working with in terms of sending massive amounts of electricity up into the ether and running it around the planet, being able to download it into other spaces that never became a fruition, and we today don't know if that was impossible to do or simply nobody today has yet figured out the devices to make that work. So he was very much a visionary, very much a man before his time. He believed in exercise, nutrition, and was basically a vegetarian at the turn of the last century. So the man's name is NICOLA Tesla. If you haven't heard of Tesla, his inventions still come today. This is an induction lighting. He worked with the concepts of induction. This is basically a fluorescent tube, and at a 90-degree angle to a current, if you put a magnet in there, this is a sealed glass tube, and this induction magnet is what excites the fluorescent. Where if you take a typical 4-foot fluorescent or any other fluorescent you have, there's little metal caps on the end of it, and the metal is what goes bad, and that's what keeps that lamp or bulb from burning over 20,000 hours, is that the metal goes bad. These have a lifespan of 100,000 hours because of that. So he was the inventor of that concept. Just to show you what kind of products have come out, this is a replacement for a street lamp, like a street lamp or a large ceiling fixture. This runs 50 watts, gives the equivalent wattage of 100 or 125 watt HID bulb, or a high pressure sodium bulb that you might see out there. Lasts 100,000 hours instead of 20,000 hours. Burns at about 1/5 of the temperature as needed before. So we can see it today in devices, and we use his devices on a daily basis. Most of us are ignorant of that point. They had awarded radio. They had told Marconi, and when we grew up in school, we were pretty much told Marconi was the father of radio. Marconi was just using the things that Tesla came up with antennas, to be able to produce these radio waves. So that's my famous entrepreneur. In retrospect, vision was important. Being around the capitalists and the movers and shakers of his period, having talented assistants, and technical skills with perseverance were his greatest attributes, but one of his least greatest attributes were he didn't have products and a couple practical things. So, was he successful? I'll leave you to that answer.
How you measure success.
It's exactly it. How do you measure success? He is correct. He is in eternity. There is no one else who's ever done that. There will probably be no greater inventor than NICOLA Tesla. And yet he died for the pauper.
He needed one of those.
Yeah, he did one of these. Yeah. All the things around. Yeah.